I'm going to show you how I was able to help over 100 KDP publishers scale past 4 figures. Some of these publishers hit 4 figures a month, and other publishers hit 5 figures a month using this exact system I'm about to show you now. Now, if you're clicking on this video because you think this system is going to be a one-click system or you press one button and then you magically make money on KDP, it's not going to be like that. I'm going to show you what it takes to reach 4 figures, and I'm talking about with one book. I'm not talking about your whole business. I'm talking about one book bringing in 4 figures every month. I'm going to show you the exact system right now and how I was able to use this system with myself and my clients to reach those numbers. Now, it goes without saying that you can't scale without a strong foundation. Because imagine, let's say you have a coffee shop, okay, and you have one employee, and that one employee is the barista and the person getting the money and doing the till things. Well, if that barista can only produce, let's say, 1 coffee every 5 minutes, so it takes him 5 minutes to make the coffee, or even if it's 3 minutes, if 100 people come into that shop, it's going to take him 300 minutes to make the coffees during the day. That might be doable, but what happens if we bring 500 people? Is he going to be able to serve all those 500 people? No, which means we can't scale, we can't bring more people into the coffee shop until we build a strong foundation that can support the scale. So one thing we can do is bring more employees. So now we're making a coffee every minute. So now we can serve 500 people. And the exact same applies for your book. If you don't have a strong foundation with your book, then you can't scale, because no matter how much you try to scale, it's just going to fail every single time. Now, it's kind of like, imagine it like this. Like, these are 2 pools full of water. Now, one pool of water looks like this, and the other one looks like this. Which pool of water, these are the exact same amounts, which pool has more water? Now, if you just look at this square, obviously this one has more water because this one has a larger angle, so there's less water inside this pool. In fact, if I draw this line on top of this, it might look something like this. So all of this right here is extra water that we have. That's what scaling is all about. We want to make sure that our book looks like this and not like this if we want to scale, because this right here is scalable because we have enough water. We have this excess amount. We can use this money to scale. The water is money. We can use this excess water to actually help us scale, because we need more money coming in to help us scale. If we have a dying book, I'm not going to pour more money into a dying book. It doesn't make any sense, because then I'm just going to be losing more money. Because when it comes to scaling, whatever your book is, it's just amplified. So if this is losing you $100 a month and you try to scale, it's going to end up losing you $500 a month. But if your book is making you $200 a month, I was going to say euros because I'm in Europe right now. I currently live in Cyprus, so we use euros over here. But let's say your book is making $200 a month. Well, now if you're trying to scale, you can reach $1,000 a month. Obviously, depending on a lot of factors. But because it's making money already and you have a strong foundation, then you're ready to scale. If you're losing money, then you're not ready to scale. So how do we build a strong foundation? I want to show you that right now. So let's stick with the example of the pool that we saw before. Let's just make this pool a little bit bigger. So the water of the pool was falling extremely quickly. Now, why is that? Why is there that this pool has less water? Well, there's a simple reason. There's actually leaks everywhere inside this pool. And all the water is falling from the leaks because why? You're not bothered to fix it. You need to fix these leaks before you scale. You cannot scale without fixing the leaks. Now, just as a side note, you're never going to fix all the leaks. There's always going to be leaks inside the pool. However, you can start fixing most of them. And once you fix most of them, you're going to see that your book is slowly starting to grow, and then you can move on to your scaling phase, where you actually make a bunch of money with KDP. But if you don't get this strong foundation correct, it's going to be very hard to scale, if not impossible. So what is causing these leaks? Well, the pool is actually separated into 3 different sections. Each section is equally as important for your book to reach a strong foundation where you're able to scale. Now, the first one is actually your impressions. Now, what are impressions? This is basically people looking at your book. It means it popped up on their screen. It doesn't mean they clicked on the book. It doesn't mean they bought it. It doesn't even mean that they noticed your book. It just means the book showed up on their screen. Whether their brain consciously realized that it's on their screen or not, you have no idea. You just know that your book showed up. Obviously, that's step 1. If your book isn't showing up in the right places, then you have way too many leaks. There's so many leaks right here that you need to fix. You need to actually get your book to show up in the right place if you want to make some sales. Now, usually impressions is an on-listing problem and also an Amazon ads problem. I'm going to show you how to fix both of them right now. So if your listing is having problems, that's an SEO problem. That means that your backend keywords aren't correct. They're not targeted correct. Because what I see with most publishers that come to me is their targeting is extremely broad. Now, what do I mean by this? When they're putting their keywords in their backend, so the 7 backend keywords, when they're putting their SEO optimized description, when they're putting their keywords all over their listing so they can index for those keywords and actually show up in the correct places, a lot of publishers actually pick broad keywords. We don't really want to do that. We want to pick hyper-targeted keywords. Now, why do we want to do this? Why do we want to pick this? Because this is not only going to teach Amazon what our book is about, but it's also going to allow Amazon to actually show our book in front of the correct customers. So if we're selling an Indian cookbook and I target the keyword Indian cookbook, guess where my book is going to show up? Is that hyper targeted or is that broad? That's hyper targeted because it can't really be anything else. Someone who searches Indian cookbook is not searching for a Greek cookbook. They're not searching for a Mexican cookbook. They're not searching for an air fryer cookbook. They're not searching for an Asian cookbook. None of these cookbooks. They're only searching for an Indian cookbook, a specific cookbook. So this is a hyper-targeted keyword. Now, if I'm selling an Indian cookbook, I'm going to target Indian cookbook in my SEO. Now, when it comes to publishers using broader terms, some publishers might say, hey, cookbook is a good option to target. And sure, you are selling a cookbook, but it's not a specific type of cookbook. Because someone who is searching cookbook, they might be searching for Mediterranean cookbook, a Greek one, Mexican, one for your grill, a fish-specific one, a meat-specific one, maybe only for burgers, maybe a cookbook for women, or for kids, or for boys, or for toddlers. They can be searching for any type of cookbook. It's going to be extremely, extremely rare that they're searching for your Indian cookbook, someone that's searching for cookbook. So in my SEO, I target as many hyper-targeted keywords as possible. Now, once I put those keywords inside my description and backend keywords and the SEO is picking it up, that means I'm indexing for the correct keywords, I'm showing up in the correct places. However, if I'm running Amazon ads and I'm still not getting impression for my main keywords, then that's simply a bidding problem. Because yes, the keyword is relevant to your book, so Amazon ads will actually start showing your book. However, if you're bidding way too low, then that just means everyone else who's running Amazon ads for the same keyword as you, they're just bidding higher than you. So Amazon is taking the higher bid, they're collecting their money, and then they're just placing them higher and they're getting all the sales, which means there's no room left for you to show up because you're bidding too low. So let's say that we fixed our Amazon ads, so this leak is fixed, and then we also added more correct keywords inside our SEO. So great, we're indexed. We might have a few more leaks because this might not be as effective as we could possibly do it and all of that. But obviously with more skill, you could fix more leaks, but we fixed most of it. So now we're maximizing this amount of water because we fixed it. Great. What's step 2? Well, step 2 is this area right here. And this is your click-through rate, which is basically the amount of people that are clicking on your book after receiving an impression. So impressions are how many screens your book popped up on. And then this is how many people actually clicked on your book, the percentage of people that clicked on your book after your book showed up on their screen. Now, when it comes to your click-through rate, there's multiple things you can do, but I'm going to tell you the basic thing that you need to improve on. This one thing, if you improve on this one thing, your click-through rate will instantly increase. This is what's going to affect your click-through rate the most. And this is the most powerful thing you have inside your arsenal of weapons when it comes to KDP, I guess. Your book cover is the most important thing, and I see a lot of publishers getting this wrong. I'm not saying everyone's getting it wrong. I'm just saying the people that I talk to and the people that join my program and the people that I coach, I see that they're getting this wrong. And when they're able to get this right, then they're able to scale, and then they reach their first 4-figure months. Now, when it comes to book covers, I can literally talk about them all day because there's so many things I can talk about. I mean, in my program, I share 12 design principles that even New York Times bestsellers are using. These 12 design principles, if mushed together into one book cover, that would be the perfect book cover. That would be the most effective book cover you could possibly have. Now, unfortunately, I don't have hours to show you all 12 of the principles, but I'll show you 3 main principles, the basic principles that you need to know. Nothing too advanced, nothing, not even intermediate, completely beginner level. If you can master these 3 design principles, your book covers will be more effective. You'll have a higher click-through rate, and you're going to be able to get more people onto your book. Now, the first one is easy. That's just understanding the color wheel and how to use color within your cover. I made a video on this. I think an eye thing just popped up there. Click on it. There's probably a bunch of videos on there. Try and find a design one. I think it's something with colors. You will know any video with something regarding design or book covers in the title or thumbnail, it will be that video. But in that video, I explain everything regarding the color wheel, exactly what you need to know. So there we go. You've mastered that once you watch that video. Now, what's the second thing? Well, the second thing is fonts. Now, a lot of people completely skip fonts. Like, honestly, publishers don't spend enough time thinking about their fonts as they should. Most publishers don't even use their own custom fonts. You know what they do? Most publishers use pre-installed fonts from the software. So they'll go on Canva and use the pre-installed fonts from Canva. Guess who else is using those pre-installed fonts? Every single one of your competitors. But guess who's not using those fonts? New York Times bestsellers. Well, not all of them, but if you go out and actually find a font, go out, install a font, go on the font, go on somewhere where they offer fonts. If you can find a font that matches with your book, obviously you need a font that's appropriate. Don't use a horror font if you're selling a kid's book, unless it's a horror themed book. But if you're selling a serious history kids book, don't use a horror font, it doesn't match. So make sure you're finding the correct fonts and try to experiment with finding fonts on websites. Don't just use the pre-installed fonts, because if your fonts are different, then your book subconsciously to your customer seems different from all the rest. If you're using a custom font, that's basically saying, hey, I put extra effort into this. I really care about this book. And the customer understands that. They see that there's value in your book. You put effort into your book. And then obviously the font will resonate with them and they'll amplify the feeling of your cover. So the font is super, super important. There's so many things that your font does. Now, I don't have time to sit and explain everything regarding fonts, but your fonts are so powerful. Please study fonts and understand the difference between sans serif and normal serif. And then when to use which one and how to mix and match them. So which one do you use for your subtitle? Which one do you use for your title? By the way, I put arrows, doesn't mean that you should use serif for your title. It all depends on your book. But go out and learn about fonts. Now, obviously, if you're part of my program, then you have everything there for you. You can just go in and have a font section. If you go through that video, then you know everything you need to know about fonts when it comes to book cover design. But there's one more secret that I'm going to give you, and that's hierarchy. This is overlooked by most publishers. Hierarchy is so important, especially if you're a beginner. Understand hierarchy before you even make your first book cover, because this is one of the most important things when it comes to your book cover. Now, if you don't know what hierarchy is, it basically says we look at the biggest thing on the book cover first and the smallest thing on the book cover second. So we're attracted to the big thing and then we're least attracted to the small thing. Now that we know this, then we can specifically pick parts of our cover, whether that's the main image or the title or the subtitle, or maybe there's a word on the title, and we can make that specific word bigger than all the rest. And what's that going to do? It's going to attract the people to look at the big word first to get their attention, and then they're going to move on and read the smaller things. So you attract attention first, and then you give information about your book. I hope that makes sense. Now, just to give you a very, very easy example, if we're selling a money book and this is our book cover, then if the word money is like this, and then let's say our book title is The Art of Money, we can have The Art of like that. So these are very, very small letters, and this is massive. So this is going to capture their attention first, and then they're going to read the entire title. But we want the word money to be the biggest word, because this is the word that attracts the most attention. If we don't understand hierarchy, we're not even aware of this, and we don't know how to position each element on our book cover correctly. Now, obviously, later we're going to have our author name, so we want them to see that third. Maybe we have a testimonial up here. Maybe we have a main image here. Obviously, we're going to make the image the appropriate size in order for their eyes to view the entire book cover in the correct order, to absorb the information in the correct order. Now, if you understand hierarchy, you know how to attract that attention and then how to convey the information in the correct order so the person says, oh, this looks awesome, let me click on this book. Oh, great, you got the click. What else do you need? Well, this is the last part of the pool. Now, once we build a strong foundation, I'm going to show you how to scale it as well, but we need to build a strong foundation before we move on to scaling. So we fixed some of the leaks here. We fixed our book cover. We added those basic 3 elements. Actually, if you're part of my program, I'm going to take this away. So you added all 12 of the design principles. So your CTR is amazing. Great. Now we've increased the amount of water on the CTR. Our book is almost ready for scaling. But there's one final step, and this one is super simple. I talk about it in almost every single one of my videos, and that's your conversion rate. Now, what do you want to do with your conversion rate? Usually the conversion rate is the part where it has the most amount of leaks. From all the publishers I've worked with, their conversion rate is what is lacking the most. Now again, your conversion rate can be separated into 2. You have your on-listing optimization for your conversion rate, and then you have your Amazon ads for your conversion rate. Both of these can come with problems, and both of them can easily be fixed in order to fix the leaks. Now, the good thing is, if you fix something with your Amazon ads, it directly correlates with your on listing. So this helps each other. They both help each other. So anything you fix on listing is going to help your ads, It's going to lower your A cost. You're going to make more money. You're going to spend less or spend more but make more profit. And anything you do with your Amazon ads is going to help your on-listing optimization as well. So it's super important to get this correct before we move on to scaling. Okay, let's talk about on-listing optimizations first, and then I'll move on to ads. Now, when it comes to on-listing optimizations, this is everything the customer sees. So this is everything on the front end of your business, on your listing. So when the customer clicks on your book, whatever they see, that's your on listing. That's your listing. Now, the customer is the one buying and giving the money for your book. And you, your listing, is the one trying to convince them or persuade them. I think convincing is like, has a bad connotation to it. But you're trying to persuade them that your book is the most valuable book on Amazon in that niche, and you're the book that they should buy. So the better that you can convince them, then the higher your conversion rate is going to be. Now, if you have a very low conversion rate, let's say it's 7%. If you have a 7% conversion rate, then one thing you can do is actually make more effective A+ content. Now, A+ content is a double-edged sword. It's very, very important that you understand this. You need to understand how to make effective A+ content, because I have a lot of publishers come to me and I'm like, okay, have you got A+ content? Yes. Is it good? Well, I have A+ content. So they don't know if the A+ content is good. They just know, hey, I have A+ content, so it's going to do its job and it should increase the conversion rate. No, that's not how it works. Your A+ content can actually decrease your conversion rate if you do it wrong. Because if you have bad A+ content and you don't convey the value of your book correctly, then it's like you're purposely telling someone, hey, this book is not really good. Don't buy this book. Imagine you walk into a Mercedes dealership and you go to see the car that you wanted to buy. And you have the money ready to buy it, and the salesman is like, oh, this is the car you want to buy? It's not the best, it's okay. It has 4 wheels, seats are not very comfortable. You're not going to buy the car. You're pushing them away. In fact, if there wasn't a salesman there, and you just went in there and you bought the car, probably would have made the sale. So having bad A+ content is worse than having no A+ content. So it's very, very important that your A+ content is actually effective. Now, when it comes to A+ content, if you understand design and you understand copywriting, they're the 2 skills you need to know to make effective A+ content. Now, copywriting is extremely important because that is the words that you're going to use to convey the value of your book in order to increase your conversion rate. And if you don't understand copywriting, that might be why your conversion rate is low. So let's say we applied effective A+ content and now our conversion rate is at 12%. Great. What's the second thing to do? This is not good enough for me. Even though 10% is the average on Amazon, I aim for at least, I would say 12 to 13% and above, because I want to know that my book is good, not just mediocre. But that's just my personal preference. But anyway, it's 12%. If we want to increase the conversion rate, what's the next thing that we can do? Well, one thing that increases our conversion rate is trust. So if the customer trusts our book more than someone else, then they're more likely to buy our book. And the only way we could increase our trust is through reviews. Now, I have a video on my channel on how I collect all my reviews, and it's actually fairly easy. There's so many videos on YouTube on KDP. You don't even have to watch my video. If you just type in on YouTube, how to get reviews, Amazon KDP, you're going to find a bunch of videos, a bunch of suggestions. Just go and get reviews. Now, reviews are going to increase your trust, and then that can easily get us up to 15%. So if you have 30 reviews, your trust is, it's a new book, it's not trustworthy yet, a few people bought it, great. You can still make some sales, but not as many sales as if you had 100 reviews. Know what the difference is. If you went from 30 reviews to 100 reviews, you're going to have a higher conversion rate guaranteed, even if you don't change anything else, purely because you're more trustworthy. Just like if you go to a heart surgeon and then you get to pick, do you want the heart surgeon that's going to perform heart surgery on you to be the guy that did 2 heart surgeries, or the guy that did 350 successful heart surgeries? Probably the guy that did 350 because you trust him more. Because subconsciously as humans, we just trust a higher number. That's it. Now, obviously, there's a bunch of more on-listing optimizations that we can do. We can make our description better and all of that. But right now, I'm just giving you the absolute basics that you need to know. And if you're able to apply this, you're going to see a massive difference in your KDP business. Now, let's talk about Amazon ads, because this is everyone's favorite subject to talk about, because everyone thinks their Amazon ads is always the problem, even though their book is usually the problem. But anyway, I'm not the one to judge. You might be different from all the rest. You might actually have Amazon ads problems. I don't know. I have to see for myself to tell you. But anyway, what about Amazon ads? How do we fix our conversion rate when it comes to Amazon ads? Well, this one's actually very interesting, because the main thing that we want to do right here is exactly the same thing that we wanted to do with our SEO and our impressions. We want highly relevant keywords. If the keywords aren't relevant, that's the reason you have a low conversion rate. Now, assuming that you have a good foundation and you have a high bid, so you're getting impressions, you have a good click-through rate, you did everything we talked about, and now you're putting money into your ads, but your conversion rate is low, your A cost is high, which is why your conversion rate is low. That just means that your keywords aren't relevant. If your book is good enough, but your Amazon ads are fucking up, then your keywords that you're targeting are not relevant. What do I mean by this? I'm actually going to bring a second whiteboard because I don't want to mess this up. There we go. I found one. Okay, we're going to come back to this in 2 seconds. Okay, let's use the exact same example as before. Let's say our cookbook. Okay, probably going to be a little bit noisy. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so we're setting a cookbook. And let's say we have 3 separate campaigns, just to make this super easy. Let's say we have 3 separate campaigns, all of them in broad match, all of them in down only. But the only thing different between them is they all have one keyword inside, but the keywords are different. So they're all exactly the same, but the keywords are different. In one campaign, we have one keyword, and that keyword is books for women. Our second keyword is cookbook for women. And then our third keyword is Chinese cookbook. Now, what are we selling? Let's say that we are selling a Chinese cookbook. I'm going to try and draw a bowl here. This is supposed to be like ramen noodles or something. Is ramen Chinese or Japanese? Anastasi, is ramen Chinese or Japanese? Anastasi, is ramen Chinese or Japanese?
Is what?
Is ramen noodles. Is it Chinese or Japanese?
Korean.
Korean. Okay, so we're doing a Korean cookbook. I just write Korean here. Perfect. Okay, so we're doing a Korean cookbook. We're targeting these 3 keywords. Now, if our ACOS is 200% here, okay, our ACOS is 100% here, and our ACOS is 45% here. Okay, it turns out it's Japanese, but we're gonna stick to Korean because I'm not gonna take everything away again. But anyway, let's say we have a 45% ACOS right here. Why do you think we have a 45% ACOS for this keyword? We're selling a Korean cookbook and we're targeting Korean cookbook. Obviously, we have a 45% ACOS because this basically says it's relevant. If we have a 200% ACOS, this is telling Amazon and us that is not relevant. So sometimes the keywords are relevant, but they're not very relevant. Let me show you exactly what I mean. For you to have a 200% ACOS, what does that mean? Well, let's say we got 100 clicks and you got 10 sales at $5 each, which means you made $50. Okay, and each click was €1. So you also gave $100. So you spent $100 on clicks on Amazon ads, and then you made 50 back from the 10 sales. That means that your ACOS, or in this case, it's your TACOS, because it's your total ACOS, but your TACOS, but let's just pretend it's ACOS just so it's easy. Your ACOS is 200% because you gave twice as much on ads than what you made back. This is a 200% ACOS. Now also, what is your conversion rate here? If you got 100 clicks and 10 sales, your conversion rate is 10%. Now, the same numbers for a 100% ACOS, that means you spent $100 but made $100 back. So how many sales did you make if you made $100 back instead of 50? Well, if you doubled the amount that you made, you also double the sales. So you made 20 sales. But guess what happens to your conversion rate? You got the same amount of clicks, 100, but you got 20. So now you're at a 20% conversion rate. So your conversion rate is higher because cookbook for women is way more relevant to our Korean cookbook than books for women are. Because books for women can be absolutely anything. Anything related to women can be placed in this category. But in this category, only cookbooks can be placed. Now guess what can be placed in this category? Only Korean cookbooks. So for us to get a 45% ACOS, but actually to make the maths easier for me because I'm not that smart, I'm just going to put 50% because I can just half all of this. We spend the same $100, but we need to make back $200, which means we spend half of our money on ads. So for us to make 200, we have to double this. So it's 40 sales. If we spent $100, which means we got 100 clicks and we got 40 sales, we have a 40% conversion rate. So our conversion rate is higher without changing anything. This is just ads. This is what we're targeting on ads. If our conversion rate is high because we're targeting a super relevant keyword, not a broad keyword, not slightly relevant keyword, a super high keyword, a super relevant keyword, then because our conversion rate is higher, then our ACOS is lower. If our ACOS is high, that means that it's just not relevant. Now, it has an ACOS, which means it got a sale. It means someone actually clicked on it and then bought it. But it's just not relevant enough to actually make money with ads. It's not relevant enough to help us scale our book. We're not scaling our books if our ACOS is 200%. We're going to be going bankrupt in a couple of months. But if our ACOS is 50%, 60%, sure, we can drop that down and start scaling and then bring in way more profit in. But we can't do this unless we're targeting hyper-relevant keywords. Anyway, back to the main whiteboard. Great. So we also fixed our ads. So now the leaks are basically almost gone. Great. Now we're actually saving a bunch of water and now our book is ready for scaling. So what are we going to do? How are we going to scale this book? Because we built a strong foundation and that foundation has a high conversion rate, has a high click-through rate, and also gets impressions, which means it's actually showing up on people's screen to even start collecting data and collecting sales and making money. Now, it's up to us to basically do one thing. If we're able to do this one thing, then it will be super easy to scale. Now, we already did the hard thing, and that's basically to build a strong foundation. We already did it. And now we have a bunch of money that we want to spend in order to scale. Now, your book is going to be growing even if you go through a foundation and you don't spend more money on ads. Your book is still going to grow because you're growing it on the listing and the ads. So your book is going to grow anyways. But we have a little bit more money to spend and we want to really scale this book to 4 figures and even 5 figures if possible, if our budget allows it to, because you must have the budget in order to scale to 5 figures a month, especially with one book. Now, I've seen it been done. I've had clients do it as well. But if you have the budget to scale, you don't have to have thousands and thousands. As long as you have a little bit of money, here's what you need to do. Super simple. Super, super simple. Are you ready? Over here are things that are working on your ads. And then over here are keywords and targets that are not working. What does that mean? Well, over here are search terms. Now, it's important to remember this. Search terms, not keywords in broad match and phrase match and exact match and all of that. What exact match does count. But search terms, which means exactly the phrases that people write to find your book and actually buy your book. You can see in your Amazon ads dashboard, any campaign you click on the campaign, click on the ad group, click on search terms on the left-hand side, little navigation bar, and then you can see the search terms there. And you can see the conversion rates and everything. You see conversion rate and ACoS and click-through rate, all the data that you need. But you're going to look at your search terms, and for some campaigns, you're going to have search terms that are working. With these guys, you do nothing because they're working. Don't fuck with anything that's working. It's not a good idea because it's working. You don't want it to accidentally not work because you messed it up. So if it's working, don't touch it. Now, there's also going to be search terms that are not working. What do you do with these? Well, you can either negative exact them. So negative exact match. This is basically telling Amazon, hey, Amazon, this is not working for me, man. You're spending so much money on this keyword and it's not bringing me sales. And even if it is bringing me sales, it's bringing me so few sales that my ACoS is 300%. What do you do in this case? You just basically say negative exact match, never show me for this search term ever again. And great, now you saved yourself some money. Now here's the thing, the money that you save from negative exact matching, you're gonna take it over and bring it right here to the things that are already working. And then you can slowly start to bump these up. So as long as you're eliminating the things that aren't working and you're bumping up the things that are working, your book is slowly going to shift and scale forward. Now, I can't go super in depth in exactly the campaigns that I do. I have my own strategy. I like to call it the lazy publisher ad strategy. But name aside, I love this strategy. It's worked for me. It's worked with my clients. And I've helped so many people scale. And I even had KDP ad agencies trying to figure out what the system was, what my strategy was. But anyway, that's a massive video. I can go super in depth on ads and we just don't have the time right now. But if you're in the scaling part, then this is what you need to do. Spend less money on what doesn't work and then push the money towards what does work. Now, if you have the foundation from before, this is going to be easy. This is not where everything just magically happens. The real business, the real book is built on the back end from whatever we talked about before. If you don't have that foundation, then this is not going to matter, because you're not at the stage to do this. So building a strong foundation is extremely important. And if you want me to help you build a strong foundation, just click on the link below. You're going to figure out how to do that. But if you want to continue learning, then click on this video that just popped up. This video is so valuable. You're going to find a bunch of value in this video. But anyway, click on it, go watch it, and go out there and make a bunch of money on KDP.